Howdy, guys, gals, and non binary pals. This is the Tales from the Waystone Summer Reading Program.
We are your hosts, Will and Phoenix. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the second installment of our summer reading program. Hey, that's the name of the book, where we'll be reading chapters 4 through 8 of Travis Baldree's Legends and Lattes.
All right, an explanation of the pod. Each week we'll be examining sections of Legends and Lattes and figuring out what we can take from the text to apply to our real lives. We will also take some time to focus on a phronimos of the week, and then we will share a recommended thing of the week. Finally, we'll wrap things up with 7 words from the book and 7 words from our own lives. We have kind of gotten to the point where doing it through a lens, not so much. Before we begin, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. First of all, we are in no way affiliated with Travis Baldree or his publisher, Tor Books. Second of all, our discussions naturally assume that you have read through the end of Chapter 8 of Legends and Lattes. Will has finished this one and its follow-up, Bookshops and Bone Dust, but I have not, so we will keep spoilers to a minimum. However, everything up to this point is clearly spoiled. Also, a word to our community, please be kind to yourselves, one another, and the creators of the worlds that we love exploring.
All right, so let's go ahead and kick things off with chapter 4. We begin with Viv and Cal repairing the roof of the former livery. And while they're doing that, just generally making repairs, Cal notices that the flagstone where the Scalvert stone is buried is uneven, which makes Viv super uncomfortable.
I want to point something out before we get to exactly that point, because there's something that really stuck out to me.
Oh, cool.
Cal notices where Viv's going to be sleeping. It's in a little loft above the office area. And then he suggests that maybe she might want like a actual bed and a dresser. And Viv is like, no need. I'm used to sleeping rough. Used to ain't the same as ought to.
Yeah, I caught that too. That's a really important thing.
If it had been 7 words, it would have been my 7 words.
I know that there is oftentimes a temptation to feel like you have to rough it with everything.
So we've had this situation before. Our financial situation has gotten better and better over the past 10 years. I'm going to say it's not been an easy road. And we have both been at very low points. Like, I've technically been homeless for a few days and having to rely on other people for things like food and shelter that, that's an uncomfortable place to be in. And now we're not reliant on that at all. Like, we're fine. It took me, especially, a very long time, and I'm still not quite there yet, where I feel like it's okay to spend money on myself or to have the things I want or to have the things like that 15 plus years ago me would have looked at and gone, well, even if I had the money for that, that's stupid to spend it on it.
Yeah. I mean, like we had one of our friends who, she has an induction stove and didn't realize that she needed compatible cookware. And she'd been making do with some stuff that, she'd gotten from like Goodwill or whatever. And because there's very little ferrous metal in it, it took forever to boil water.
Like an hour.
Yeah.
And so there's also something to be said about like spending more money on the energy to get it to do the thing. And now you don't have the money to go get the proper equipment. Well, short end of the story is that we had an extra pan that we didn't want or need. We were able to give it to them. And the next time we saw them, they're like, actually, I should say she, because I was talking about plural people.
Yes. Both are technically correct.
Best kind of correct. Anyway, so the next time that we saw her, our friend said, oh my God, it's so much better this way. Like, it actually works. And I'm just, oh. So first off, you've got the sunk cost fallacy. I already spent the money on this. I might as well use it. And then secondly, you've got I can't afford to get something better right now, even if that would save you in the long run. And then there's Viv in this story, who we've seen multiple times has had backaches, has had issues with even just being able to go back to sleep or to have a restful night.
She's not used to having a home. She's used to living the murder hobo lifestyle of an adventurer, living in camps most of the time, then occasionally inns in between gigs, but never really settling into one place for any long period of time. And now, as she's making a home for herself, because this is really what her shop is, it's a home. Cal's making the point that she ought to be able to feel secure and comfortable there. And I think that's true of all of us. Like, if you've ever felt like, oh yeah, I could sleep on a camp bed if I wanted.
I could sleep on an air mattress.
But that's not the same thing as ought to, because that isn't going to be good for you in the long haul. You're not going to be at your best. So if you have the means, it is okay to invest in that, and it's encouraged.
The story continues with, oh, did you talk about the stone? I'm sorry if I cut you off.
Very briefly. When Cal mentions that where Viv has buried the Scalvert Stone looks a little uneven, Viv quickly kind of brushes that aside and gets really nervous about that.
And tries not to show it, but I doubt that she was successful.
And it's interesting, even as much as she's come to trust and rely on Cal, and as he's demonstrated his trustworthiness, she still has a hard time letting go of some of those more distrustful habits. And, so at night, as soon as everybody's gone, she pries up the stone, smooths out the sand underneath, and then replaces it. That's a lot better. But it also ends up prompting a dream where she finds herself with her arm trapped in the head of the Scalvert Queen. I don't really want to get into too much about what all this means. I think it'll become more clear as we get closer to the end of the book.
It almost certainly does based on the fact that you're looking at me that way. But again, I had a hard time getting through this the first time because of impending doom TM. But to your point, the idea that while she trusts Cal but doesn't trust Cal, similar things exist in like ingrained in me, right? I trust that we are able to get another bag of Doritos if our D&D group eats our entire bag of Doritos. But if you would have asked me 2, 3, 4 years ago, I would have hidden the bag of Doritos. Like if I was that worried that they'd eat all of them. Because I, for so long, lived in a situation where I couldn't easily replenish literally everything that was consumable. And so that's why for the longest time, I also had things that I bought that I wanted to enjoy, but I wanted to enjoy them slowly, but to the point where sometimes I enjoyed them so slowly that they went bad. And that's also going to bring back to like, use your nice stuff. Like that is a recommendation, totally free of like the trappings of our podcast, but do use your nice stuff. Anyway, going back, but like sometimes there's that almost uncontrollable, I can't really trust the situation, the person, what have you.
I think it's also notable because Viv doesn't trust anybody with any of this information. It's not personal to Cal, I don't think.
Oh no, she wouldn't trust anyone with this information. And Cal is really the only person that she's formed a friendship with at this point.
Yeah. So the next day, Viv removes the livery sign since she kind of figures it's time to leave that chapter in the past. Meanwhile, Cal starts suggesting a few names for the coffee shop. And I think this is kind of cute because he's clearly thought about this a lot because Viv's a friend of his now and he wants to make sure that it's one that she likes and he's worried.
But also, he's taking pride in his own work, which is great.
So his first few ideas are Viv's Place, Viv's Coffee, maybe just coffee. And then Viv suggests Calamity Coffee has a nice ring, which frankly it does. The alliteration works.
That is true, but no one knows what coffee is.
Right. So they kind of stick a pin in that. And then while they're planning furnishing and decor, the thug from the Madrigal shows up and introduces himself as Lack. He also has with him some other henchmen, and he again makes some not so veiled threats and demands of payment. Viv brushes those off. She knows that in a combat situation, she can handle these guys, no sweat.
But Cal does make mention after the guys leave of, but maybe this isn't just about your own bodily safety anymore. Maybe there are higher stakes involved.
There are higher stakes. She could beat up any 4 goons, yes, but the Madrigal has way more than 4 goons.
Also, the coffee shop is flammable.
Yes, it's made of wood. And like Viv has a stake in the neighborhood now in a way that she hadn't in any place that she's been prior to this. It isn't just her. She's not living alone. She lives in the city. She lives with neighbors. She lives with this entire community around her. And what she's seeking to build is really a community that is going to be about more than just her. But Cal also recognizes that if Viv is going to be standing up to these goons, she had better have her weapon close at hand.
And so he makes her a bracket to put on the wall. Black blood gets to not only be a useful tool for murder hobo lifestyle, for actually killing things and people, but it gets to act as a silent threat not to mess with Viv, but also as kind of a symbol of her past life.
It's like the Winchester rifle at the Winchester pub in Shaun of the Dead. It's there to protect the premises at this point. So the next day, Cal shows up with a gift this time.
He's bought her an oven.
He recognizes that it's going to get cold here in the winter.
And that she might also want to consider making food just in case people don't catch on with the coffee.
He's still not sure what this is. So Viv takes the opportunity to make him a cup of pour over.
With a stocking instead of a filter, because I guess paper filters just aren't a thing. And, the fancy perforated metal ones aren't a thing.
Cal is initially skeptical, but he tries it out of politeness to his friend and gives the faint praise of, it's not that terrible.
So I'm going to say, Cal reminds me of your grandpa and a little bit of your dad.
Yeah, I always kind of imagine him with that same sort of, well. And then they have this brief exchange where Viv says the gnomes have a version of this that they serve with milk that they call a latte after the barista who invented it, latte diameter. And Cal responds, can't explain what one word means with another word nobody knows. And that's the fantasy author's dilemma right there.
What is a barista?
Right.
That's true. I, in my youth, read a ton, and I mean a ton, of fantasy where there were just a ton of proper nouns that were clearly pulled out of the author's
Dash.
And I'm dyslexic. And in fact, my email address when I was a teenager is what I read, not what was on the page, what I read one person's name as, because I could not tell you what the name of that person actually was in the book, because I never ever could read it that way. And so I have a lot of weird headcanon things that are not what was intended from a lot of proper nouns.
Then you'd always get things like splurn was the shirk of orc. And then you're like, what does any of that mean?
Exactly. Like, I know what a hobgoblin is. Like, I know what it is. I don't see him that way because the first time I read it, I was probably tired and I just have something completely different and I'm not really sharing because it's kind of embarrassingly stupid.
I know what you mean, though, where without having a direct visual thing or a point of comparison to our world, it can be really difficult to explain that stuff.
Yes. The end of this exchange is, Cal, I didn't invent the words. Although, I mean, she could have. Yeah.
Cal reminds me a lot of my great grandmother, actually.
Oh, yeah?
So one year when my dad and aunts were younger, they decided to get her a copy of The Hobbit for Christmas. And so she picked it up. She just read for a little bit, and everyone's just kind of sitting around hanging out. And she puts down the book and she just kind of looks at her and goes, huh, little men smaller than elves. Most ridiculous thing I ever heard. And then she put it down and never picked it back up. I mean, that's kind of Cal a little bit. So I find it amusing.
Lady stockings and exotic bean water. God's help us. Yeah. Yeah. But at least he's willing to try it.
Yeah, Cal's a fun character.
I do like him. Well, our next chapter starts off with Viv actually wanting to hire someone who maybe knows what they're doing a little bit better than she does. And she goes and places an ad for an assistant on the job board. Now, she's used job boards like this before to get, like, please go out and murder this massive thing that has been plaguing the town kind of jobs. And, that's pretty much what this has been used for before. But in this case, it's like putting your job ad on Craigslist.
And it also puts her in an interesting position because she's well, 1, she's never done this before, like running a coffee shop.
And two, she's never hired anyone before. Not like this.
Yeah, all of her previous hiring experiences have basically been random hirelings.
Can you stab something with that dagger you're carrying?
Yeah, basically gig work.
Yeah, this is actually meant to be an established position that is ongoing, that is like a partnership.
And, the thing that she posts is most important is willingness to learn.
The rest of the ad, though, reads like a standard job posting from like our world with all of these vague notions of things. I hate applying for jobs. I hate having to guess what the stupid job posting means. What things of mine fit into like those square pegs into those round holes of what they're looking for? How do I make it seem like what I am skilled at is something that they want and not make it sound like, "Oh yeah, my greatest weakness is perfectionism."
And on the flip side, being the poster, knowing that you're kind of trying to pad out space a little bit.
Yes, because both of us have also been either at least interviewers. I've interviewed people for jobs. You have actually had to make the job postings.
And be the hiring manager.
Right. I just had to be like culture fit.
Right? Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to think, okay, what are the things that I really care about and what are the things that are nice to haves? And, sometimes the person who has all the nice to haves isn't the right person for the job. Oftentimes, the right person for the job is someone who maybe doesn't have all of the experience that you've listed as a plus, or even maybe even as a requirement, but someone who has the right mentality for the job and a willingness to learn.
Yes. The thing that is a great takeaway for me is that when I was the interviewer, unless someone very much did not have the skills at all, or any inkling of what skills they would need for the job we were hiring for, which was most of the time something to do with the art department of the video game company that I was working at, and sometimes the UX department. The idea was, can I get along with this person and can we work together?
Yep.
It wasn't, "Oh, yeah, you know exactly our process," because no one knew our process, because we did things the way we did things. But it's is this person willing to work within our process? And do they have ideas that would legit make our process easier and not just take over and say, your process is stupid, let's do it a completely different way?
Yeah.
But the job posting here is assistant wanted, must be willing to learn, which I gotta say though, as the person applying for the job, I hate that. As the person hiring for the job, I want that. Management and food service experience desired, advancement opportunities, vague platitudes.
Yep.
Patience is a plus, wages commiserate, vague platitudes. Inquire at the old livery on Redstone, afternoon to dusk. And Viv just over caffeinates herself.
She's nervous. She doesn't know that anyone is even going to show up. This is useful to remember also. When you are applying for a job, in many cases, the person posting that job is also trying to impress you. They want to make sure that they're hiring someone. They want to be a place where people want to work.
Which is also partly why, if you have too much experience, people are a little nervous to hire you because they're like, you're just going to move on. And then I have to do this all over again.
Or are you sure that you actually want to work with me?
Right. Or do you actually want this job? Because if you try to get into an entry level job and then all you want to do is advance, well, they needed somebody in that entry level job. And so they'd rather hire someone for that entry level job than hire someone who just wants to advance as quickly as possible because now they don't have anyone in that entry level job. I think the most, I don't have a good adjective for this, but example of someone that I've watched get interviewed that I just wanted to go in and go, it's okay. I promise he's not that scary about the interviewer, because the interviewer was somebody that I make jokes with and like I go to the coffee shop with, and he's been really nice and wonderful. And the poor guy that was interviewing for like a programming position was in a conference room with him with the interviewer that looked kind of like a fishbowl
Mm-hmm.
with all the windows. Oh, gods, that's horrible. I hate it. And the poor guy was just sitting there and his leg was shaking, like the table was shaking, like the entire floor in front of the fishbowl was shaking. Like it's just, and I felt so bad. I'm like, oh, I just want to go in and comfort you. It's gonna be okay. And the thing is, like, I knew him from school because he was an underclassman. And it's just like, oh, it's okay. I promise. These guys are dorks.
They're not trying to be scary.
Right. Everybody that works here is a complete and utter dork. I promise you, they're fine. You don't have to be this nervous.
I interviewed a guy who had worked with one of my previous managers and had gotten a little bit gun shy because of the guy.
Oh,
And I had to be like, okay, so first of all, you got to understand that guy, he talks a big game, but he's a teddy bear. You were fine. I can assure you. And I was like, okay, so first of all, if you can handle him, you can handle anybody.
I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that the person hiring you is also a person, and they may also be very nervous about doing this particular part of their job because this isn't normally part of their job.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, like Viv is hiring for a position to work in a line of work she's never done before.
And so she just doesn't have all the answers that somebody who's going to come into this job is naturally going to ask about.
So let's talk about her first applicant.
Her only applicant?
She's fortunate. Wonder why.
Right, because this person not only is just an applicant, but she also just assumes she has the job now. And
So,
that can sometimes work in your favor and sometimes backfire massively.
so the person who shows up is Tandri, who is a succubus looking to make a change in career. And at first, Viv is really nervous about all of this.
She starts rambling, starts making assumptions based on Tandri's looks, based on Viv's secondhand knowledge of what succubi are like. It's not subtle, making assumptions of the book based on the cover, about the person based on their looks. Mild racism. Anyway.
And it's also to Viv's credit that she quickly realizes that she understands what this is like on the other side all too well.
And that she's being like this.
So she apologizes.
Which is really just a lesson that a lot of us need to learn. Don't dig your heels in when you've realized that you are the problem.
And while Tandri is initially a little put off by the assumptions, she also quickly recognizes that Viv is someone who is acting with goodwill and is actually trying to do better.
Good intentions, but not in the way that's like, I am the best person. You should totally just ignore all the bad things. It's more like, okay, I said something stupid and it goes against my values and I apologize and I will do my damnedest to do better.
Well, and then not only that, but she offers empathy. In her apology, she says, I've been on the wrong side of that as well, and I, of all people, ought to know better. I'm going to work on that.
And it also shows that even if you are in a minority situation, class, race, community, what have you, it doesn't exempt you from having preconceived notions and prejudice against other people, other classes, other communities.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important for us to register that because, like, even parts of your own community might not be fully accepting of your space in the community. As an example, there are a lot of gay and lesbian people who don't like that trans people are part of LGBTQIA. Also, a lot of people that don't accept asexuality as part of the alphabet soup, especially if you're heteroromantic. So if you like people of the ostensible opposite gender, like romantically, but you're not sexually attracted to anyone, a lot of people are like, but you're not really in the queer community. And I'm like, yes, you are. You're ace. Your sexuality is no thank you. And it is just as valid as your sexuality is yes, please, everything. And just as valid as just that one, but not the one that everybody else thinks that it should be. Just as valid, right? And so it is important that we challenge our prejudice when we see it crop up.
I think that this is also a large part of why Tandri is pretty quick to move past everything and say, you know what? Let's talk about compensation on this.
Let's talk about my wages. I'm going to take this job. Not, do I have the job? No, I'm going to take this job. How much you're going to pay me? Okay, how about a little bit more than what you said? Cool. And then there's no mention of when the job starts, when she's going to be back, any of that. But somehow Viv isn't too worried about all that. She trusts that things are going to work out, and they do.
I think part of it is because Viv actually showed that vulnerability there. Like Tandri is used to dealing with prejudice and preconceived notions across the board. And so having someone being willing to own up to that stuff and work to do better and offer empathy instead of defensiveness lets her know that this is the kind of place where she can grow to be safe. Everybody's got preconceived notions, and recognizing that someone else is willing to work on it and take accountability for it helps people to feel better.
I definitely agree. And there's definitely a difference between someone who knows that they have prejudice and are just going to dig their heels into it and be unapologetically just an
Asshole.
versus someone who goes, oh gods, I did that. I shouldn't do that. That is an awful way to be. Let me change that. I can't guarantee that I will change that overnight because, I mean, that's not really a reasonable ask, but I can do better.
Like I say, this actually shows where Viv's true heart is, which is in trying to improve herself.
With the understanding that I need you to be an enunciation, true heart.
This, yeah, I think what it comes down to is this shows where Viv's true heart is. It's trying to be better. It's trying to change, to grow.
How hurt are you? How hurt?
How hurt?
Sorry. Critical Role reference. Yay.
So that night, Viv takes down the job posting and has a bit of a celebratory meal.
I do like that she's started to think of certain places as kind of her place to go, her default places to go. Like, we definitely have our favorite ramen place, or we have our favorite place to order banh mi from, or any number of things, right? Like, we've got the places that are close by that feel like we've been there a bunch of times and we know the menu backwards and forwards and we know what we want. And I think this is a new sensation for her.
She hasn't been in a place long enough where she gets to know the people and gets to feel like she's part of the community. And then that night, there's a thud on the roof.
Again, so rereading this, it's not as dun dun dun, like it's not that overarching, like, I don't want to keep reading this thing in my head anymore. But that was something that continued to kind of add to that uneasy feeling to me. And I don't know. I am going to push through and actually read the entire book. This is still in the land of I already read it. But like, yeah, it's meant to pique your curiosity of what the hell was that?
So let's talk about chapter 6. So it begins with Viv and Tandri going shopping for decor and stoneware.
And I love that Tandri just goes, okay, clearly my expertise, not your expertise. Let me go do it. And Viv is like, clearly your expertise, not my expertise. Let you go do it. And I'll be the muscle. And it reminds me really a lot of the shopping episodes of like Critical Role or Dimension 20. Like, this whole thing really is a D&D setting.
Oh yeah. Although instead of looking for, well, I mean, they are looking for chef's tools.
Yes. But the day goes on, they purchase all their stuff.
After they get done with their shopping expedition, they go out to lunch together, and Viv actually gets to share what brought her into this whole idea of doing the coffee shop. Where did this vision come from? It's not like she's always wanted to be a coffee shop proprietor. She didn't even know what coffee was until 6 months ago. It's an opportunity for her to share what it made her feel. And the thing that she got was it made her feel peaceful. She wanted to keep feeling peaceful.
And then, is this where there's a little bit of preconceived notion back towards her?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because Tandri knows that, yes, she is an orc. She's got a massive greatsword hanging up in the in the front of the shop. Tandri has pretty rightfully figured that, yeah, you made your living killing things.
And Viv turns it around a little bit and makes a joke about, like, oh, well, now who's making assumptions about whom?
Yeah, but you're not wrong.
After Tandri just kind of goes, it like tears down a little bit of that aloof confidence and allows them to have a little bit of bonding and vulnerability.
And what we're really seeing is that they're forming a partnership, that they're both interested and curious and looking to grow. They have a mindset built around embracing change. They're both looking to do something different. Again, that goes back to the core theme of this book, which is things don't have to be what they start out as. Neither of these two people have to be what they started out as.
So when they return to the shop, there is a delivery, an enormous gnomish crate sat out in the street, and it's in front of the coffee shop. And on top of it is one of Viv's friends, just kind of sitting there, waiting until they get back.
It's Rune, who is the dwarven fighter, one of her old adventuring buddies.
D&D party!
He expresses that he was a little bit hurt by Viv's decision to leave without letting anybody know where she was going or why she was leaving.
Too real for a D&D campaign, because that just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Even our current campaign, there is a missing member, and we understand why she kind of stopped playing with us, because it is a pain in the royal tuchus to get here from where she lives, especially during the week. And adults, D&D campaigns can sometimes just be short and disappear because of life.
One of the ongoing jokes is that the thing that kills D&D parties is not a level 40 red dragon, it's adult commitments.
Yes.
Jobs, families, kids, you name it. Like
Cats.
cats. Yeah, because as you get older, you have more commitments and it's harder and harder to devote time to just hanging out.
And when you do hang out, actually getting past the chatting stage to play the game,
It can be hard.
it can be. But I do really like how they still have the camaraderie. They're still easy friends with one another. Although the rest of the party has probably taken it a lot more personally than Rune has.
Rune's been around the block. He knows how it goes. Rune mentions that Galena in particular is a little put out with Viv and misses her a lot because they were very close. Fennis still sucks, but
There's always one of them. There's always somebody that doesn't quite fit, and you're like, why are you here?
the token evil party member.
Yes. Although we don't really have that,
Not in our current one, no.
which is amazing, and I love it.
Rune personally has no hard feelings though, and he leaves Viv with a blink stone, which is basically an SOS pager that Viv can use in an emergency to call the gang if she gets into trouble.
Chekhov's Blinkstone is what I said when I read that. I looked over at you and I just go, Chekhov's Blinkstone. However, we should talk about what he brought.
Right. It's a coffee machine.
It's a coffee machine. It's an espresso machine.
Yeah.
It is a gnomish engineered espresso machine.
Filled with these ornate copper pipes and gears, and it feels very steampunky.
I love it, and I want one, but I don't want one because I don't want it on our counter.
Right. So after Rune leaves, Viv and Tandri assemble the machine, and Viv makes the first cup and gives it to Tandri. And Tandri is initially hesitant, like everybody is, but takes a little sip.
The way that she reacts is, oh my. And it makes Viv grin and just go, big sigh of relief.
It's not just me that likes this.
Exactly. Now, I do think it's a little bit unfair to compare a pour over through a stocking for Cal and this nice, fancy, actual, as intended espresso, because they're not the same. But I think there's an interesting commentary to be said about the pour over might actually be more Cal's speed anyway, and that espresso seems more suited for Tandri if we're going to look at personality types. Neither one of them is bad, because you and I both absolutely love pour over. That's how we do things. It makes it easier for us. There's no coffee machine to leave grounds in and have it be moldy and gross and blah, 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 and not cleaned out. I know what I said sounds really just off to people who aren't neurodivergent, but seriously, we will not take care of things if they're not visible. But I think that there are so many nice, wonderful ways to enjoy just the process of making coffee. For me, a pour over is very calming and very slow and deliberate, where the espresso is all like modern and not exactly automated, but there's a lot more bells and whistles and a different product.
The other thing that I noticed throughout all of this is so Tandria has been reading the manual that came with the machine, and she also quickly understands what she's going to be selling. And not only that, she likes it. This is going to work. Not only does Viv have something that people will like, she recognizes that the person who's going to be helping her gets the vision. There's nothing like working with people who respect you, understand the value that you're trying to bring, and want to bring it to.
In the next chapter, chapter 7, we actually do see Cal go out and get a sign. He has chosen a name for the shop.
It's Legends and Lattes.
Hey, that's the name of the book.
Yeah, Viv loves it.
That's good, because if she didn't, then he wasted a whole bunch of money.
Of course, Tandri is a little curious what a latte is. And Cal's explanation is it's hot bean water with milk.
And so Viv is just like, oh, guys, seriously, let me make you one. Cal takes one sip and his eyes go wide and he goes, well,
Shirt.
milky bean water. I'll be damned. And then he takes a longer sip and he immediately burns his tongue. I love the details.
Yeah, I've burned my tongue on more than one hot beverage.
Same.
Meanwhile, Tandri was like, oh, now I have to try this. And she also is quite pleased. So then Viv shows Tandri how to work the machine. And now with the machine in place and a name for the business, Viv's ready to open the next day.
And not to be a wet blanket, but Tandri mentions, did you think about telling people?
Have you thought about advertising?
No.
Yep.
Can we try opening and see what happens? I mean, there's no harm in doing that, except, nothing will happen. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of freelance people, a lot of people with a lot of talent, the least favorite part of all of it is trying to get customers.
Marketing yourself feels ooky.
That is exactly what I was going to say. As someone who has certain skills in podcast editing and in graphic design and in even like a little bit of programming and a little bit of game design at this point, haven't done it in a very long time, but I still have the skills are there. I just have to dust them off. I do not enjoy advertising. Hell, this podcast would be bigger if I actually did enjoy advertising. Right now we have, just peek under the hood, about 80 to 100 people who like to listen to us regularly. Every once in a while, and I do see this, every once in a while we get a new person and then our downloads go way up because we've got like 150 something odd episodes. And I can tell when there is a spike I'm like, somebody found us.
Listening to the back episodes.
And I'm apologizing now for all of the quality of the previous, the first couple of years, especially the first couple of months. Oh my God.
How many times did we re-record the first episode?
Not very many. I swear. It's not even that, though. It's that I didn't have the volume settings very good either. And I didn't learn about certain editing things until, I don't know, even a year ago. That would have made my life so much easier. So, yeah, quality has gone up, but.
So that afternoon, Lainey comes out and looks at, it's definitely not a livery anymore, and congratulates them with a mostly inedible fig cake.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I don't like the trope of people can't bake and still give it to people, because I would be mortified if something that I created was that bad.
I mean, here's the thing though. I don't think there is a way to make an edible fig cake, no matter how talented the baker is.
It's like fruitcake.
Yeah. There's a reason why those never show up on the Great British Bake Off.
Yes, but stop trying. It'll break a tooth. Cause like if I'm gonna bring baked goods places, it better damn well be something I would eat. And I have discerning tastes about what I will and will not eat, even if I've made it. Something pineapple curry, something. I'm sure we've told this story before. If you just re-listen to all of the things that we have put out there in the last 5 years, I guarantee you I don't remember what we talked about last week, so I am not going to remember what we talked about 3 years ago. But I'm pretty sure that we've talked about the pineapple curry before.
Yeah, it's there. You don't need to know about it. If you want to ask about the pineapple curry, ask about it on the Discord and then we'll write it down.
Don't freeze pineapple and then try to reheat it. Anyway,
So Cal takes off and Viv finds herself missing him. He's her first friend in this new venture and she doesn't know if she's going to see him again.
because his part of the work is, quote, done. I don't like saying goodbye to people that I've made friends with. And something that sucks is that, like, work friend not being considered a friend. If I didn't have friends from your work right now, I wouldn't have friend. No, I would. I would still have friends. But like, why is a work friend not like a friend? Also, like, there are people that I see on a regular basis at the guitar store, and it's a weird situation of like, I would like to be your friend, please, but the only time I ever see you is when you were at work. And I feel like I'm not allowed to be your friend.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
But so as Viv and Tandri start tidying up for the next day, Tandri advises caution.
Don't get your hopes up.
The first bit is going to be rough.
You're probably not going to have any customers.
It's the same advice that the owner of the pub gave as well. And it's true for all aspiring restaurateurs. It's hard. It's tough. You may not get customers at first.
You're going to have to work at it. If no one knows that you're there, then no one knows that you're there.
And if no one knows what you're actually making, they don't know that they want it or need it.
That is a big challenge here because no one knows what coffee is. And while, yes, you can follow your nose to something that smells great, that's not going to happen for a lot of people. Even if you want to do that, sometimes that just seems embarrassing and you shouldn't, and so you don't. And sometimes the smell doesn't go that far, so it's not like you're going to know unless you're already on that street and already passing by. And then if you look in and it's empty, like, what are you going to think?
It's tough. So that brings us to chapter 8.
Which starts off with Tandri was not wrong.
Actually, hang on a sec. There's one last thing. So as they're getting ready to wrap up for the night, you hear a thump from the roof again. And when they go outside, they find that the plate that had held the fig cake is empty.
They'd left it on a table outside. Somebody's made off with the brick.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Tandri is feeling like, well, I feel bad for you.
All right, chapter 8.
Starts off with Tandri was not wrong.
It's slow indeed.
Non-existent, one might say, with the exception of first Cal, who loudly extols the virtues of coffee to no one.
It's cute.
I love Cal.
He comes by because, one, these are his friends.
Yes.
And I think, two, he's starting to appreciate the coffee that they make.
That too.
I think it's that genuine enjoyment of, and he wants other people to enjoy it too. And of course, he's not exactly a master advertiser.
Yeah, but it's adorable. And then we've got Lainey, the woman across the street.
She stops by mostly for her plate and politely orders a latte, but doesn't drink it.
And doesn't even take it with her.
She's a little afraid.
She doesn't strike me as afraid. She strikes me as means well.
I guess what I'd say is she does not like to venture outside her comfort zone. That's where the, quote, fear is.
I gotta say, though, there are certain times when you just gotta. If I were so afraid of venturing out of my comfort zone, I would never have realized how much I like Thai food. I would never have realized how much I love sushi. Because, like, you say raw fish, and a lot of people, like kids, go, ew. And even then, like, adults sometimes go, ew, like your parents do. Or one of our best friends. But she's at least tried it.
Yeah, she just doesn't like it.
Right. That's different. If you've tried it and you don't like it, that's not the same as just hearing about it and going, ew. Also, I wouldn't know that I like Vietnamese food or that I like Malaysian food or that I like pretty much anything like Ethiopian food or Eritrean food. Like, if you're unwilling to try things, you're unwilling to learn that you love things.
Yep. It can be a process for some people, though.
But also, I wouldn't know that I absolutely love having umeboshi. I like sour plum, and it is an acquired taste. And it's so funny because, like, I legit actually like it, and it is a dare food. It's a dare food in the way that durian is a dare food.
So, since there's not really a whole lot to do, Tandri starts practicing making lattes herself, and it's, of course, a process. First one is a little bitter, the second one's a little watery. She's making progress.
Well, she is willing to learn.
And then in the afternoon, Tandri nervously shows Viv some of the ideas she's been thinking of to attract business. Tandri is kind of nervous. She doesn't feel like she's in her wheelhouse. This isn't her shop or anything like that.
She doesn't want to step on Viv's toes, but she also does want to do what she can to help.
And Viv, to her credit, recognizes that these are good ideas that she wouldn't have thought of on her own and empowers Tandri to make the decisions that she thinks are going to be correct.
And her first one is to make an advertisement sign that says Grand Opening Legends and Lattes. Try the exotic gnomish sensation. Free samples. Limited supply.
Tandri pretty quickly understands that this is an experiential thing and people have to know what it is and they have to feel like it's worth paying for.
That it's special.
But if they don't have any concept of it, of what they're actually going to get, they're never going to just fork over money. So you have to give them sort of a risk-free way to experience the thing. I mean, it's like when you go into Costco and you just browse the free samples. You can make a lunch that way.
And sometimes they do actually convert you into customers for that item. And even then, like, so just knowing that there's the free samples that you can have is enough of a enticement for a lot of people to just come to Costco. And it's not like you're going to go into Costco, which is, first of all, you have to pay for a Costco membership to not buy anything, but this might get you to buy more.
We also quickly learn that Tandri is a pretty skilled artist and graphic designer. She manages to make a very professional looking sign that quickly lays out the basics of what it is, how to get there, and then she strategically posts these signs around the block so that people will know where to look. That evening, of course, Lack is back making the rounds with the usual veiled threats. We also see that he's visibly chummy with the local law enforcement, so Viv learns that she can't rely on the cops to come to her aid if anything comes of it.
Something, 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 something. Not going to say it. Something, something.
And that night, we find Viv contemplating the Blinkstone. She feels like she might need its help sooner than later.
So I'm going to say, with the Blinkstone, it's activated by fire. There's already been foreshadowing of fire. I'm just putting those things out there. Not that it's like a theory, but I definitely haven't gotten to anywhere that would be coming to fruition. But I am well versed enough in narratives when things that look obvious sometimes are obvious, when things that are mentioned are going to be things that occur. And I don't want that to occur. Don't tell me if that occurs. But that's the first thing that came to my mind. With that lovely note, it is time to talk about our Fernemos.
It's your turn. Who'd you pick?
Who do you think?
I'm going to guess Cal?
No.
Tandri.
Yes.
Okay.
I do enjoy Cal a lot, but I think that Tandri has to be my Fernemos this time around because she's not letting her fear of stepping on Viv's toes prevent her from making suggestions and trying to help. She's not content to let go along to get along be kind of her ethos. She has ideas. She seems to have some expertise. She hasn't really talked about it, but she's getting over the imposter syndrome.
One thing that I appreciate about this book is it's built on sincerity, and Tandri is a good example of this. Nothing she ever conveys is anything less than how she truly feels about something. If she says that she truly loves something, she truly loves it.
If she says that she does not, she definitely does not.
She is not shy about her feelings and she does not hide them at all. So when Viv wins her over, she's 100% on board.
She's enthusiastic. She understands that this was originally Viv's idea, creation, thoughts, dreams. But she also sees how she can both influence, take part in, and benefit and build.
Yeah, like she knows that Viv has this vision for what she wants. And she's also clear minded enough to recognize that it isn't just going to happen by magical thinking, despite what the Scalvert Stone might have you believe.
But of course, she doesn't know about that. The wanting a thing doesn't make it so, yet another king killer thing, but actions and strategy. And there's a term that's fail faster. If you're going to try something, try it. And if it fails, move on. But if you never try, you never will find out if it would have worked.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Like she recognizes, okay, we're going to need to try some things here. We're going to probably have to do some experimentation. And, Viv, to her credit, also recognizes that some of the things that Tandri has brought up are things she hadn't thought of. And so then when she encourages Tandri to pursue these avenues, it makes Tandri that much more committed because she understands that she'll be respected and valued for her expertise.
And while not every employee wants to feel like they are a change bringer or has that much agency to affect the company, a lot of people would like to have their thoughts and feelings validated.
I think that's a large part of it. They want to feel like their efforts are recognized and their talents are recognized. When people work, they want that work to be valued and appreciated. Like, even if it's keep the lights on type stuff, they want to feel like their expertise is appreciated for that, even if it isn't glamorous. And recognition is a large part of that. And then also feeling like you have agency and how that works. So when you see that there's something that could be better, if you're empowered to work on improving it, makes everybody's life better.
Even if it's just in a small way.
Yeah, I think Tandri's a good pick.
Thank you. Not to mention, she's also an artist, and I love that.
Yeah, she does remind me a little bit of you, the graphic design element especially.
Why, thank you.
So with that, it's time to talk about Thing of the Week.
It is your turn.
I don't have a happy one, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
As you all know, I am a massive fan of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Friends, do not join me. It is bad right now. It is really bad.
Oh,
We lost to Leicester today.
I don't know what this means.
It means we lost to a team in the relegation places when we're sitting in 15th.
Oh,
Yeah,
this doesn't sound good.
it's not good. If you've been following it, the phrase "he did his hammy" is entirely too common. Right now, we have an injured list that would be a first team starting lineup at most clubs.
Ick.
Yeah, it is not a good time to be a fan of this club. I'm miserable. I hate it. And I will not stop. I don't recommend that you join me. If you have the choice to choose a club, please pick somebody else. There are better clubs out there. Save yourselves the misery. Yeah, I'm still going to be a Tottenham Hotspur fan when this is all over, but still, oh my God. Just if you have the opportunity, don't. Just don't.
And you don't have anything that you would recommend people do?
Take up a hobby, maybe try painting. I don't know. There's some good books out there. We've made a podcast about it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe learn an instrument. Consider photography. Pottery can't be worse.
Okay, gotcha. I was going to say something like maybe watch Severance season 2.
Oh, yeah, you could do that too. That's a good one. But whatever you do, don't watch Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Okay. Well, I'm going to steer us away from that now. Such cheerful things to be.
We are in a bleak world right now, and so what little discretionary time you have should be spent on things that bring you joy, and this football club is not one of them.
Okay, I'm trying to just let's talk about our 7 words now.
All right, it's your turn. So you have words from the book. What'd you pick?
I have a few. There's one that's an exchange. Were you a sign maker or something? Is 7 words. No, just always had an artistic bent is also 7 words. Try the exotic gnomish sensation, free samples. Another exchange. Look, I am very bad at this. I don't really know what I am doing. Both of those sentences are 7 words. But my 7 words from the book, my actual choice is I'll allow. It's actually not that terrible.
It's a good one.
You have 7 words from life. Please tell me that they're not absolutely dour.
I can't make that promise. In the theme of my recommended thing of the week.
Oh no.
Oh, for
Forks.
sake, sign someone, Levy. Yes, right now, like I said, there's an injury crisis on. We're in the January transfer window, and we've only signed a goalkeeper. Granted, we need a goalkeeper, but we also need bodies in the outfield, and we don't freaking have them.
Outfield is actually a term in football, like soccer football.
Yeah, any player that isn't the goalkeeper.
Okay, because I'm just thinking of outfield as baseball.
Like I say, a lot of people done their hammies this year.
Okay, well, with that, thank you very much for potting with me.
And thank you for potting with me.
And thank you for listening to Tales from the Waystone Summer Reading Program.
Join us next time as we continue with Legends and Lattes with chapters 9 through 15.
We would like to thank our friend Shawnee Jang for our theme music.
And many thanks to Travis Baldree for creating this world we've enjoyed exploring.
Audio production, editing, and I'm just going to say this, I've kind of quit social media. Now I'm really only on Reddit. Courtesy of me, Phoenix McCullough.
And writing and project management courtesy of me, Will McCullough.
If you would like to help support the show, feel free to look over on our Patreon, patreon.com/waystonepod. If you would actually like to engage with us a little bit, we have a Discord. I put a link to it in all of the show notes. We actually really would love to have conversations with super awesome, like-minded people who like cozy fantasy and would like to help us choose what the next book that we read is. You know, stuff like that. Do you want it to be Bookshops and Bone Dust? Do you want it to be a different cozy fantasy? Would you like it to be, we're not going to read something that's 1,500 pages for this? So please try not to suggest anything from the Cosmere unless it's like, I don't know, Mistborn, which I might do. Who knows? Because I really like that book. I don't like its sequels. Do like that book. Anyway, I digress. Please join our Discord if you would like to have a little chat with us. I know there's only a handful of you out there, but we'd love to talk with you.
We have fun. It's a small community, and everybody there's friendly.
So far. And if you're not, well, we control it. Anyway.
As always, here's to one more day above the roses.
To one more day above the roses.
Ding! Good job.
I super have the song stuck in my head.
Nice.
And I am not going to sing it because I value our audience and my own ears for editing.